Okay, so this is part two of the Seascape that I started doing a couple weeks ago. So today what I've done is I've started my first layer of colors. So for those of you that wanted to follow along, what I've done first is I've made a dark green. I actually own this green and I think it's, might be called sap green, but anyway, you can make this color by mixing ultramarine blue with cadmium yellow, and it makes like a dark army green. So you can mix them about 50-50 and you'll get this color. So I just painted in my one little set of islands, the little island here and then this sort of strip of land over there. Then what I did is I just painted a little bit of it into where the water reflection is going to be. And I didn't really worry about being too fussy about it, just enough to get the impression of where it is. Then the next step is to start doing the water. And this is our first pass at the water, so we're not going to get it totally right the first time. But that's the thing about acrylics that's great. You can paint it and then go over it again. So to get the watercolors that I've done so far, I've used cobalt blue and titanium white for the most part. If you don't have cobalt, you can use ultramarine blue. That would work okay. And I know that the color here isn't quite like my reference photo. I'm going to add a bit of phthalo blue, possibly in a thinner preparation and overglaze a bit of the water later to give it that kind of more turquoise undertone. But for now, I'm going to let this just dry. What I did is I took my pure cobalt and I did the darkest kind of areas of the water that I could see in the photo. So what I was just looking for is shapes. I'm not too worried about it being exact, but just roughing in where things are. And then by adding a bit of white to it, you get another lighter version of the same color. And I did those kind of areas next. And then adding more white, you get this area. So then I put that in, and then just pure white at the end to kind of put in some of the highlights. And then this last little bit over here, this is, I think, an island in the distance. So because it's far away, the value is a lot lighter than these islands here. So you want to add a lot of white to your color. In the photo, it almost looks like a lavender. So I'm going to just leave it like that. I'm going to paint it kind of lightly like that, and I may go back and do it again later. So now I'm going to let my water dry, because what I find is that if I do more now, like if I try to add white to it, it'll just blend in too much, and I kind of want it to just dry so that I can layer on top. When I'm doing this part here, which is the reflection, if I wait for this to dry, I'll be able to get the effect I'm looking for. If I paint my white into the green right now, you can see it's already kind of doing that where it's blending in and making this pastel green, which I don't really want. I want the water to be crisp white next to the dark green of the reflection. So I have to let that dry now. I think the part that I'm going to work on next is the sky. So the thing with sky that a lot of people don't do correctly, in my opinion, it took me a long time to learn this, is that the color of the sky from the top to the bottom isn't the same. So as tempting as it is to just paint the whole background one color, like a blue sky, for example, that's not really what nature does. So even on a nice sunny day in the middle of the day, the darkest value of blue will be at the top, and it'll be a lot lighter at the horizon line. This reference photo is kind of like a late afternoon, early evening photo. Not quite sunset, but the color temperature is changing. So in my reference photo, near the horizon line is almost like a yellow color, and at the top it's a very like lovely blue, and then there's every color in between as we go down. So the way that I usually do this, and I'll do this next and then I'll show you how it looks, is I'm going to mix a bit of cobalt blue with phthalo blue, and you'll get this very vibrant blue, and I'll add a little bit of titanium white, and that'll be my top blue. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to add more and more white until I get to a very light blue in the center. Then I'm going to take that color and add a bit of Hansa yellow to it, and I'll get almost a greeny color. And then more Hansa yellow, it'll turn yellow, and even more, and maybe even a bit of quinacridone burnt orange or quinacridone azo gold to get a really golden color for the horizon line. So I'm going to try that part next, and I'll show you how it looks. And then once I've done the sky, then I'm going to come back, let that dry, and I'm going to paint in these clouds. And I'm going to try to leave a little bit of the underpainting showing through to give it some warmth. And you notice here with my painting, I didn't completely cover the underpainting. So that's something that I like to do in my paintings. Not everybody likes that, but I think it looks cool. And then the last section I haven't started yet is the rocks. So the rocks are going to be tricky. I think what I'm going to do to start is just to paint the whole thing black, and then I'm going to mix a bit of, take a bit of white, and I'm going to put in some highlights and shapes, and then I'm going to let it dry, and then I'm going to work on that some more after.